everybody? It's your girl, your favorite host, COOLKID, and welcome back to 30 Days of Cool. I'm super excited. We're kicking off week 2 of 30 Days of Cool, talking about Pivot the Podcast that dropped in quarter 4 of 2019. So we're still in 2019, rolling into 2020. Before we jump into things, I want you guys to do me a favor and follow us on Instagram, okay? It's going to be right here at COOLKID_Production_. And then I want you to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you're notified of every single upload. 30 Days of Cool, we're giving you guys all things COOLKID. From October 1st to October 30th, you guys are going to get fun facts, behind the scenes, inner thoughts. We're doing story time, story posts, throwback posts. I'm literally going into the archives looking crazy for y'all, okay? And then on October 31st, we are dropping phase 2, so you guys don't want to miss anything, man. You want to stay tuned. You want to be locked in. I want to shout out a few different people who were a part of the Pivot the Podcast journey. She's my photographer for life, and I'm recommending her every single time. She goes by the name of Tia Smith, and you guys need to check her out. I'm going to put her Instagram right here as well. Book my girl, you know what I'm saying, for all your photography needs. You can't miss if you book her. Shout out my girl, 2 Y's, 2 M's, that girl Shazam. If you're an independent artist and you are looking to sit down with a dope individual, get that exclusive, you want to check out my girl Shazam, interviews with Shazam, 2 Y's, 2 M's. I'm going to put her Instagram right here. And then I also got to shout out my boy, one of my favorite people, LJ Scott, who is the engineer for a lot of the Pivot the Podcast episodes, who's also an artist as well. I'm going to post his Instagram right here. Make sure you check out all of his work, everything of those 3 individuals, because they are super dope people. I know because I've experienced them, and y'all know I don't tell y'all no lies, all right? Pivot the Podcast. I'm going to try to make this a quick story time. Right? Disclaimer, I did not know that there was a whole podcast named Pivot that was already popular. When I started this, I had just had a conversation with Shazam, and I was telling her about how I felt about my plight with radio and not being able to get into the industry, and wanted to still be in that medium of audio. And right? She suggested Anchor.fm. She had released the episode on there just to see, and she told me about it, and I did my research, and I felt that it was going to be my next move. So I started brainstorming rollouts, names, the show itself and how it would go, the setup. I got into my producer mode. I had so many different things that I wanted to say, you know. Essentially, podcasting for me was my way of doing radio without all of the constrictions and FCC laws and things of that nature. I have more creative freedom and creative direction, and it's just me. There's no team, so I didn't realize how overly ambitious podcasting actually was for me at that time. Not having so much software experience, but, you know, doing what I can with what I had. Not having a specific recording studio and having to look up a place that's affordable enough for me and something that I can get to on the bus or the train, because again, no license, no car, no money on it. Okay? None of that. At this time, I'm serving and bartending, so I'm not broke, but I'm serving and bartending. You know what I'm saying? And that's where I was. I was still trying to find my way with it. And I knew that it was time for me to become the face of my brand. Although at first I felt like I couldn't be the face of my brand because of certain insecurities, you know. When you are a plus size baddie, you kind of have to do a little bit more. And I live in a city that, you know, it's more accepted now. But when I first graduated, baby, if you wasn't nip, tucked, plucked, sucked, whatever, you was not that girl. Although I grew up in Atlanta, born and raised, and the era that I grew up in, it was about enhancing your natural beauty. That was not what was going on once I graduated. Everybody was overly enhanced. And I was scared, baby. I'm not laying on no table. So I decided, okay, I'm going to start working it out. I'm going to start getting in the gym. I'm going to start eating better. I'm going to really lock in as much as I can. 2 things though. I didn't account for inconsistencies due to life happening, due to COVID, due to not having access to the studio anymore because of COVID, having to learn softwares that I never learned in school, so I don't have any prior training. So I'm YouTubing, you know, and I'm just learning the basics. And then also allotting for that time. You have to carve out time. As an entrepreneur, you have to really set a schedule. And when you're coming out of school for 12 years, right? Because I was in high school for 12 years and then I was in college for 4 years. So that's what, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years of school, of having a schedule all of my life, to no schedule at all, to like, except for work. But then it's like, what do you do after you get off of work? Yeah, you could, you got a bunch of little things you can do, but how are you going to spend your time? My brand was set up for two reasons. One main reason, the big reason, was to put artists on. The other reason is because I'm also super talented and I love artistry in multiple mediums and forms, and I want to explore that about myself. And if I can't get into radio, I can create a platform where I can platform myself and others. So Pivot the Podcast was personal for me because it was my way of getting my voice out there and showing my thing. At the time in my mind, I felt like, okay, I'm switching things up. I'm changing directions. I'm what's another word for changing direction? Pivot. I wanted a title that could roll off the tongue because my previous titles were too long. Lyric poetry and author's ab, and everything was like a 2-syllable type of situation. I wanted something that was just like nailed it. And Pivot the Podcast was perfect. Okay? It was punctual. It was sharp. And it was the reason why I chose that title. I had 2 seasons of Pivot the Podcast. And those 2 seasons are still up till this day. Not on our Instagram, but they're still up on all of the audio platforms such as Spotify, Apple Music, all of the areas where you could get a podcast. This is also me starting this pre-COVID, before video casting was a thing. And once video casting became the thing, and once the podcasting realm became oversaturated with everybody talking about the same things, I got discouraged. I fell out of love with it. I didn't want to do it. I was just starting to master audio production. Now I need to do video because everybody else is too, so I can get views. Now I got to make sure I look good to go on camera. Now I got to edit twice. That sounds like a lot of work. And what I learned as an entrepreneur is you're always working. But if nobody tells you this, and you don't know these things prior to, then you learn it the hard way. And I definitely did. I was a little bit overly ambitious. And sidebar, why did I start a whole nother podcast called I Don't Do Shit for Free? Thinking that I was going to highlight Black women that I knew who were successful, young, around my age, who were doing different things and had to realize why they don't do shit for free. I had one episode that I put together and I dropped it. And then I took it down after maybe a week of it sitting up there and not doing any numbers. Nothing. Nobody listened to it. I was so sad. I was so embarrassed. I felt like, man, this isn't going how I thought it would. So maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. But within Pivot the Podcast came Ear Sex. And Ear Sex was just supposed to be a small music segment. When I found myself not recording on the regular and not trying to edit, but I wanted to talk to artists still and still give them that shine, I started doing something called Ear Sex Live, where I would go live on Instagram and talk to the artists and interview them on Instagram and play their music and stuff like that. And that actually became really popular. And Ear Sex Live took off and had one of the biggest eras of COOLKID production, phase 1, that I think was one of my favorites next to the merch, because I love clothes. So ultimately, Pivot the Podcast was necessary. I needed to learn what I could and couldn't handle. And I felt like, it's not something I'm going to quit forever, but I'm going to have to circle back. And maybe it won't be called Pivot the Podcast. Maybe I'll circle back to I Don't Do Shit for Free. I don't know yet. For me right now, podcasting is just not in the cards. It's not something that I want to do. I was intimidated by having to do video editing. And look at me now, dropping videos on YouTube like a pro. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. It's all about learning. It's all about experience. Forever remain a student of the game, and you shall not lose. I have decided to do 30 days of cool so that you guys can really get that transparency from me. I know that I've been inconsistent with my brand, and I'll say I'm gonna drop something and then it don't drop. Life is doing what it want to do and all this other stuff, but I'm not stopping, and you shouldn't either. you know, and I hope that within the next 30 days, you guys get a better understanding of why I'm doing what I do. COOLKID production is for the people and the artists, because I got the people and I got the music, and we're gonna put it together and it's gonna be beautiful. And that's just what it is. I just want to give you guys a little bit. Again, we're gonna be dropping things all week. I'm gonna do some story times. I'm gonna go live. I'm gonna drop breadcrumbs of anything from phase 2, so you want to stay tuned for that. All the Instagrams that I mentioned right here, right now, and I want y'all to pause it, look everybody's name up, follow them on Instagram, and turn your notifications on, because these are some really dope individuals. And of course, follow us so you can stay up on all things COOLKID and stay tuned for 30 Days of Cool. And yeah, man, I'm excited. Again, it's a bittersweet moment because we do have to say goodbye, but it's not goodbye forever. It's really, truly hello. We're stepping into a whole new skin, okay? A whole new body, if you will. And it's going to be dope. So once again, it's your girl, your favorite host, COOLKID, and welcome to 30 Days of Cool. I'm out, y'all. Peace.